Coreweave announced a massive acquisition today, valuing the company it's acquiring at $9 billion. Yet the company it's acquiring has seen a stock price drop of nearly 17% as I am recording, and currently has a market cap of 4.5. That is a huge difference compared to that $9 billion valuation. What is going on? Let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for their subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first, let's try to understand who these two companies are, just to kind of understand why the acquisition is happening. And I do believe it makes sense. So Coreweave is a cloud server provider. They provide AI infrastructure for AI companies to rent out. For example, if you are OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google, you use Coreweave to kind of increase your AI infrastructure, your AI compute. As we saw earlier, Coreweave was, in a few episodes ago, I talked about how Coreweave was the first player to have the GB300 available. So here you can see products. You can rent out the GB200, the NVIDIA's HGX, the H100, the H200, and the list goes on and on. So right now we are in such a market that you need a lot of AI infrastructure that even cloud server providers themselves need extra capacity, and they come to companies like Coreweave. That's why you have Microsoft, who already has their own data center unit, and Google, who already has their own data center unit and cloud unit, come to Coreweave to rent out even more and more infrastructure. Now let's talk a little bit about Corz Scientific. So this is ticker CORZ. So Corz Scientific is a company that builds AI infrastructure, but not necessarily the compute. It's the infrastructure the AI chips need, or these AI servers. So these data centers you need a lot of electricity, you need a lot of cooling, you need a lot of permits to kind of just build these data centers outright. So they kind of pretty much provide that outside infrastructure. So then a company who has the inside infrastructure, kind of like all those AI chips, can kind of just roll them in and not have to worry about setting up the electricity, setting up the water, making sure everything is good with the legal issues behind it, right? So Corz Scientific provides that type of return. Now, we do know that this market is intense when it comes to AI infrastructure, right? And the AI race is heating up every single day. Every single day, I feel like I hear new news kind of telling me how bullish this AI market can really be. And to be able to do that, it's like Coreweave, instead of having a middleman to be able to do all this, they're rather just buy that middleman right now and all the data centers that they have, so like that they can increase their capacity of how much AI infrastructure they can build. So that's pretty much the main reason for this deal. Now let's take a closer look at the deal itself. So under the terms of the merger agreement, Corz Scientific stockholders will receive 0.1235 newly issued shares of Coreweave Class A common stocks for each share of Corz Scientific common stock. So first thing we are seeing is this is an all stock-based compensation deal. It's not a cash-based deal, and that kind of messes things a little bit, right? Where when they made the evaluation of it, it was a $9 billion valuation, but it's all going to be dependent on Coreweave's stock price, right? That's pretty much what is going to determine the stock value in the future. So that's why Coreweave stock investors might not be too excited. They might believe Coreweave is actually a little bit too expensive right now, that when this acquisition is actually done, Coreweave stock price might be way below these values and maybe be closer to the values we are seeing in the screen right now. Now, the reason Coreweave stock is down is we did see that this is newly added shares. So you are diluting current investors. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a bit. Now, Coreweave mentions that Coreweave will own approximately 1.3 gigawatts of gross power across Corz Scientific's national data center footprint, with an incremental 1 gigawatt plus of potential gross power available for expansion. So obviously, at least 2.3 gigawatts of total potential power here, which is a lot in a lot of AI compute. This 1.3 gigawatts, for those that are not familiar, they do talk about it, represents 840 existing gross megawatt power of supporting Coreweave's high-performance computing contracts and 500 gross megawatts of crypto mining data center power capacity. So it does seem like at least at least most of the capacity was already being rented out by CoreWeave itself. So they're just kind of buying them off if it's already a big player for them. Now, if we go on to this, they kind of mentioned that verticalizing the ownership of Core Scientific's high-performance data center infrastructure enables CoreWeave to significantly enhance operating efficiencies and de-risk our further expansion or our future expansion, solidifying our growth trajectory. Owning this foundational layer of our platform will enhance our performance and expertise as we continue helping customers unleash AI's full potential. So it's pretty much just cutting off the middleman. If you're already kind of owning their home business and kind of getting any of the future potential business, why not just outright buy the business, and then you're not going to be paying that middle margin in there, right? So it makes sense for CoreWeave to do it. And as Coreweave mentioned, it expects to generate significant cost savings through streamlining business operations and eliminating lease overhead. Now, the transaction is expected to close in the fourth quarter of 2025. And when they kind of did this acquisition, it was on July 3rd, and they did kind of some price calculations, and it made the total equity of about $9 billion. This represents a $20.40 per share value based on the closing price of CoreWeave Class A common stock as of July 3rd of 2025, and a premium of approximately 66% to the unaffected Core Scientific closing share price of $12.30 on June 25th. CoreWeave expects Core Scientific stockholder ownership of the combined company will be less than 10%. Regardless, there is still a nice amount of massive dilution over here. A few things I also want to mention. This does immediate elimination of over $10 billion of cumulative future lease overhead to be paid for existing contract sites over the next 12 years. And some people might say, look, you're already eliminating $10 billion of some expenses with this $9 billion acquisition. It makes perfect sense. There's a little bit to add about this. This deal adds $500 million of estimated fully ramped annual run rate cost savings by the end of 2027 through streamlined operation focus and potential to repurpose towards high-performance computing usage or divest crypto mining business over the medium-term horizon. So there are some ways they can play around kind of the crypto mining business that they have, either through just repurposing it for high-performance usage or selling and divesting out of the business. If I was to guess, it's going to most likely be closer to the first, where they're going to repurpose some of that power infrastructure to be able to handle high-performance computing. Now, I do have a presentation I want to showcase, but first I want to say thank you all for the 70,000 subscribers. I want to hit 75,000 by the end of the year. So if you haven't, make sure to hit the thumbs up. And let's see if we can do that. Also, make sure to check out my free newsletter, whatthechip.happened.com. Make sure to check out my special offer at fiscal.ai/Jose for 15% off any paid plans automatically. That is a platform I use on a daily basis. If you're not using it, I think you should. It's definitely the greatest platform here for data solutions in the overall stock market space right now. Now, things to consider. There are some things to consider here for CoreWeave. So CoreWeave had a very low float IPO. While it's diluting shares right now, it didn't do a full offering during the IPO process. So mathematically, this is actually better than if CoreWeave had done the full IPO process, because mathematically right now, this is better than selling those extra shares at the $40 IPO price that it had intended to do. For those that don't remember, during the IPO process, it was a lot of negative sentiments in the market that it really wasn't a popular IPO at the day. So they didn't do the full offering. They didn't get rid of all the shares. Now at these higher price points, it's like I mentioned, mathematically, this is better than if it had sold those extra shares at that $40 IPO. Now, we did see kind of that benefit that while CoreWeave mentioned $10 billion of lease expense eliminated due to no longer having these long-term contracts, it is crucial to note that $10 billion is not the actual amount saved. You need to add back the monthly expenses and everything else this company will now need to handle internally, right? That's what you would pay a company to do. You will pay them, like when you lease anything, you're paying them for a lot of other things to do. So now you have to do that. So there is definitely going to be some savings, but it's not that 10 billion. So it's not a free acquisition that I kind of keep hearing some CoreWeave bulls talking about. Now, if one company got the better end of this deal, in my opinion, it's definitely Coreweave. Now, the current market in the AI space is still who can build the fastest, and this Core Scientific acquisition helps with that market condition. If you can build faster, you are going to be winning. Eventually, that could change, but at least what we're seeing right now, this is definitely a great strength for Coreweave. Now, things to consider for Core Scientific, right? So Coreweave stock right now is currently at around $160. If you give it that kind of trade ratio, the valuation of Core should be around $19.76. Yet Core trades at a $15, or when I was doing this video, at a $15 valuation. I think now it's even closer to $14.90, right? So a lot cheaper than that. Why? First, there's always kind of a small arbitrage just in case the deal doesn't close, right? That's the first thing. But this is closer to a 23% discount. The second thing is the deal doesn't close to the last quarter of this year. So cores are now pretty much a call option of Coreweave for the end of the year. And at current prices, it seems like the market believes Coreweave's valuation by then is going to be closer to $124, right? So it's kind of Core's telling the company that Coreweave is a bit expensive, it's overvalued, and you're maybe getting the bad end of the stick. Now, these arbitrage plays are pretty interesting. If you think, right, Coreweave is going to be higher than $124 by the end of the year, and was at the $15.10 price point. Now that it's $14.90, I think it's even closer to maybe $120. If you think Coreweave is going to be higher than $120 by the end of the year, then it makes more sense to buy Corz, right? Core Scientific. In theory, it makes sense for any Coreweave investor to buy Corz instead, right? Right now, I could sell, in theory, my Coreweave for $160 and buy Corz, where the valuation based on this return is going to be closer to $120. But there's always risk. It's not that easy, right? What if this acquisition doesn't go through? What if something else happens? There is always something that can go wrong, and that's why there's always an arbitrage different. But I'm actually debating, why wouldn't I want to just sell my Coreweave stock right now and kind of buy Corz instead, because it does give me a better valuation entry into Coreweave, especially if I'm still planning to hold those last remaining shares that I own. So yeah, pretty interesting. Let me know, what do you think of doing? Are you planning on playing this kind of arbitrage play here with Corz and Coreweave? If so, let me see what I might have missed, and let me know in the comments below. Take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.